Hello everyone, my name is Maruku, and today I'm going to be doing What If Deku Had a Corruption Quirk? Now, this isn't evil. He's not going to be a villain in this one. He's going to actually be a hero. And yes, corruption, it does have its negative effects, but just wait and see. It's going to be very interesting. So I'm starting this out when Deku is a child. He still has the love of heroes that he has in the main story, and he still has that love for All Might, but he worries about the idea of when he'll get his quirk because, strangely enough, all the other kids in his class have gotten their quirk already, except for him. And his mother, Inko, just seems to be very worried that he might not get his quirk, but she tries to keep optimism with it. And she takes him to the quirk doctor. And I'm going to say that in this one, it's not Ujiko. It's going to be like your run-of-the-mill quirk doctor. And, she wakes him up in the morning, and he's all excited, and he's a child. He's jumping around like really energetic, just like trying to rush her and stuff. But eventually, she gets him in his car seat, and she drives him over to the quirk doctor. And when they get there, they go into the office with the quirk doctor, and he asks, "So I see that little Izuku here is coming in to see what a quirk is." His mom obviously tells the doctor that she has concerns that he might not have his quirk, or that it might be something not very flashy, because her son obviously wants to be a hero. And the doctor, he obviously understands, and he takes Deku to the back room to do some tests. He does the X-ray, takes a blood sample, and he starts to check him out. And Deku does, in fact, have the one joint in his pinky toe. So he does have a quirk. But the doctor, strangely enough, he doesn't actually know what it is. And he tells Inko that it appears that Deku's quirk is kind of dormant, and that until that specific thing that awakens it happens, that Deku's going to be kind of stuck out. So she thanks the doctor, and she takes Deku home. And he's a little kid. He doesn't understand that his quirk may not come in until later in his life, so she kind of feels bad because she doesn't know when he'll get his quirk. And the next day he goes to school really excited, not realizing that what he tells the kids about him having a quirk is gonna make things harder for him, because Bakugo the week before actually developed his quirk. And when Deku came around and told him that he had his quirk, all excited, like the first person he went up to was Kachan, and he said, Kachan, I got a quirk." He's like, "Really, Deku? You got your quirk?" He's like, "Yes, Kachan, I did." And then Kachan, just like being really excited, he's like, "Well, Deku, show me." And then Deku just kind of tells him that he doesn't know how to activate his quirk, that apparently the doctor told him that it was dormant. And Bakugo, being the little stinking brat he is, just assumes that Deku's lying about having a quirk. He gets all the other kids to start picking on him, as it usually went in the original story. And this would go on for at least a year, until like that one scene where like he stands up for the kid, saying that if he doesn't stop being mean, that he's gonna protect the kid himself. And just like in canon, he said, Kacchan tells Deku that how's he gonna fight back without a quirk? And Deku responds with that he's still gonna try and protect the kid no matter what, and that he's not gonna let Kacchan just push him around. So the kids start to charge at Deku and try and beat him up. But then Deku starts getting this feeling, like a weird sensation in his chest. He kind of gets this weird, feeling just growing, throughout his body. And then time seems to slow down for a second as he notices that Kacchan has this dark kind of aura around him. This kind of scares Deku for a minute, but then he reaches out his hand almost instinctively and just grasps his hand. And all of a sudden, Kacchan just falls to the ground. Just almost like he's stuck or he's stunned or paralyzed. And the other kids, they're freaking out. They're like, "What did you do?" And Deku loosens his hand and Kacchan's fine. He gets up. He's like, "What did you do, Deku?" And Deku, not knowing what he did, said, "I don't know. I'm not going to let you hurt him." And Kacchan just chalks it up to some weird coincidence. And as he goes towards Deku rears back and sends a punch towards Kacchan, which he immediately tries to explode Deku in the face, but before he can, Deku's fist starts to radiate this dark aura around it, which technically stretches out a little bit past his hand, almost like a manifestation of a little bit of a bigger fist, and it ends up hitting Kacchan in the side of the stomach, and to his surprise, it hurt. Obviously, it's a giant kind of manifestation of a hand that hit him in the side of the stinking chest. So Bakugo, he gets knocked down, and the other two kids are like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And they start backing up because they realize Deku got a power now. He about to sneak and start folding them like lawn chairs, about throwing hands. And Deku, realizing that he awakened his quirk, he walks over to Kacchan and says, "I'm not going to let you hurt him anymore. I refuse to take your bullying, Kacchan. You're not being nice." And Kacchan, obviously think of it as stupid, throws a miniature explosion in Deku's face, knocking him back. And Deku, for some reason, he's not able to collect this aura again. So Kacchan proceeds to just kind of beat him up a bit. And Deku doesn't know how to reactivate the quirk, so he gets beaten up, just like in canon. But obviously, Kacchan knows Deku somehow awakened his quirk, and that it's going to be really strong if it can damn near knock his breath out with one punch. So he's a little bit more avoidant of Deku now, and is starting to kind of be wary of whatever Deku did. And up until middle school, Katsuki kind of grows a bit of a respect for Deku, because he does have a quirk now, and he really doesn't have a reason to kind of look down on him, because he has a quirk. He's got a strong quirk that's prominent. So around the end of middle school, the teacher comes up with the papers and says, "I was gonna give you these job job application tests to see where y'all would go. And then he smiles. He throws the papers up in the air and says, "But I know you want to be heroes!" And all the kids start blowing off their quirks, except for Kachan and Deku. And then the teacher holds up an application that says, "And two of our very best are going to be applying for UA." Of course, Bakugo, he puts his foot up on the desk and he says, "Don't lump me in with these other wannabe heroes, Teach. I'm the only one who's going to be getting into UA. I'm aced the mock test, and I'm the one that has the most potential out of all these losers to make it in there. All these other ones are going to be nothing but we'll be lucky to be some sidekick to some busted D-lister, as in canon." And then the teacher looks down and says, "Oh yeah, Midoriya. Didn't you say that you wanted to get in UA?" The other kids are kind of like, not like in canon. They weren't laughing at him because Deku does have a quirk, but like he doesn't show it off. He's not like Bakugo, freaking like showing off his quirk, trying to act like he's the top dog or whatever. But Bakugo, obviously knowing that this is going to be a problem for him, and knowing that Deku is obviously almost like a rival in this sense, but technically they are closer than like usual. He sees it more as like a challenge to him, so he does get like kind of pissed off and like throw the explosion in Deku's desk like in canon, but it's not as big. It's more like I'm challenging you, Deku. You're gonna be my rival in this. Because like I said, they're not like enemies. They're more like kind of like a frenemy kind of thing, So after school, Katsuki doesn't throw Deku's book out the window and tell him to take a swan dive off the roof of the building. So that never happened. But like Deku, at this point he knows how to use his quirk at least a bit. He's got like a basic kind of like physical enhancement kind of thing down with it, and he does know like how to kind of like sense negative intent out of people, but he doesn't completely understand the depth of like how strong his quirk really is, So he goes under the underpass because his mom's birthday is obviously that day, and he really wants to get home to celebrate the birthday with her. But it's on this day that like that he goes under the bridge, and he's able to sense that something's coming because he can sense the negative intentions like from under the sewer. But he doesn't know that it's a villain coming his way. He just senses like something. And like knowing that it's coming, he turns around just as the manhole cover blows up out of the sewer, and he sees this green slimy sludge start like spewing out. And it's kind of like it takes him it kind of like he's taken aback. He's kind of like, what in the world? But like he doesn't know exactly what's going on. So when he sees two massive eyeballs kind of like form out of this slimy creature, he realizes that it's a villain. But before he can really get away, the sludge villain charges at him. And just as it's about to actually jump on him, he tries to manifest his quirk in his right hand and try and use wind pressure to kind of blow it away or something like that. But it's in vain. The sludge villain is just too thick to actually do anything to. It starts to crawl around his body and try and get in his mouth, saying, "I didn't know that freak was in town. You're a perfect skin suit. You'll be my hero, kid." And as the slime is starting to go down Deku's throat, he's resisting, but it's like a he's not able to really do much about it. And then slowly he starts to get that feeling like years ago when he was a kid, like a manifestation of something. Because up until now, he was able to awaken a very small portion of his quirk. But that feeling kind of like unlocks all the way, almost like within a few seconds, like almost like he's on like really close to passing out. It's almost like something clicks in the mind, like, and all of a sudden, like he reaches out and grabs as much of the slime in his hand as possible, and the sludge villain, he just starts screaming in pain. He's like, "Ah! Kid, what are you doing? What is this?" And the reason the sludge villain's in pain is because when Deku grabbed him, he started to like take control of the negative energy that was inside the sludge villain and almost make it shoot out, almost like a negative energy spike that started to kind of like almost blend the sludge villain, knocking it unconscious. Not enough to kill it. It's not like a killing move, but it's like a psychological thing where it kind of like hurts his sanity. And the sludge villain starts to kind of like to get more liquidy and like enough to where Deku is able to kind of like to back up a bit. Then all of a sudden you just hear you hear like a All Might pop out of the sewer with an "I am here," and he sees the sludge villain on the ground, kind of like writhing around with the kid just back, like crawling away from it. He says, and he sees what's going on, and he starts to like, he's confused. He's like, "What in the world is going on here?" And suddenly the sludge villain, he just goes into a rampage and starts like rushing All Might, trying to get at him. But before he can, All Might rears back his arm and says, "Detroit Smash!" and just blows the sludge villain into a bunch of little slimy pieces all over the ground. He says, "Are you alright, kid? You look pretty freaked out there." And Deku, seeing his idol, he starts freaking out. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're really here." And then he starts scrambling around and reaches into his bag and says, "All Might, please sign my notebook." And All Might, with the biggest smile on his face, he just reaches it out and says, "Sure thing, kid," and starts giving Deku his autograph. And Deku helps All Might to actually put the sludge villain into the bottle that he had. And just as All Might was about to jump off, Deku stopped him and said, "All Might, wait, I need to ask you a question." And All Might, kind of like sparing time. He's kind of like running low on his time. He says, "I can't talk now, kid. Hero work and all, I gotta get this guy to the police station. A hero's job is never done." But just as All Might jumps off, he notices that his leg's randomly pretty heavy. And as he looks down, he sees Deku and his legs, like, and with his eyes, like weirdly, like, his eyes and mouth is kind of like open. And he's like, "Ah, kid, come on. I love my fans, but this is too much. Get off." And Deku obviously is like, "But if I let go and I fall on the ground, I'll die." Which then makes All Might realize, oh, wait, he will die. So then he kind of like, he tells Deku to close his eyes and mouth and wait till they land. When he lands, Deku's kind of like really freaked out and winded. And as All Might is like backing up, trying to think of a way out of this, Deku starts asking his question to All Might, asking him if he can be a hero even with a quirk that most would consider villainous. All Might, like, this puzzled him for a second when he heard this. a kid with a villainous quirk wanting to be a hero? And then at that moment, he starts to de-transform and turn into his Small Might form. And then Deku just freaks out. It's like, what? Where'd All Might go? Are you a fake? And All Might's like, no, kid, I'm the real All Might. And he starts to explain his injury to Deku. And then he proceeds to ask Deku what he means by having a villainous quirk. Deku went into further, kind of like an explanation and told him that when he was a kid, that he went to the quirk doctor, and after this was he's telling him returning there when they actually figured out what his quirk was. He tells All Might that he has a quirk called corruption. This puzzled All Might, and he asks Deku, what can it do? And Deku tells him that he's able to make his body a stronger, that he's able to kind of control emotions, negative emotions mostly, but people with negative emotions, he's able to control them to an extent that he's able to create this aura around him that makes people kind of fear, that he's able to sense the negative energy of people around him like the villain, the sludge villain, in that he's able to kind of if he has physical contact with people, that he can create madness, like he can act with what happened to the sludge villain when his quirk fully awakened and he touched the sludge villain. It created madness, driving the sludge villain insane, kind of, to a minor degree. And All Might kind of, he sits down, he starts to ponder on this. And then he looks back to Deku and says, kid, with a quirk like that, I'm not sure if people would see you as a hero. But I firmly believe that if you put in the hard work and you show the world that your quirk is nothing to be feared, that you can be a hero. And unlike canon, the sludge villain didn't fall out of All Might's pockets. He still has them. So Deku thanks All Might, and he promises not to share the secret with anyone. But he asks All Might if he can train him, because he's obviously very feeble and weak, and he doesn't got a lot of strength, which All Might took notice of when he explained the quirk to him. And he agreed. He told Deku that he would train him in that, and to meet him on Dagobah Beach whenever, maybe a few weeks from then, because this is when the 10-month training period starts. So with and he gives Deku his phone number, that way that he can keep in contact with him, and Deku goes home, and there's no sludge villain attacking Bakugo incident, none of that. He just goes home, and he tells his mom that he met All Might, and she starts freaking crying, and like in canon, when she realizes that her baby met his idol, because she knows that All Might meant a lot to Deku, and she's happy to see that her son met his idol, the person he looks up to. She was so happy for him. And a week later, he goes down to the beach, but when he sees All Might, he also sees a girl with him. This girl's got brunette hair, not like kind of short, kind of like to her elbows, and Deku walks up and he says, "Oh, hi, All Might," and the girl starts like is kind of shocked. She's freaking out a bit, like, wait, who's All Might? Like she's trying to feint the fact that like that it's All Might, and All Might turns to her and says, "Don't worry, he knows about my quirk and about my injury." And she kind of calms down a bit, realizing that this is someone that All Might trusts. And Deku asks All Might, "Who's the girl?" And for anyone who hasn't figured this out yet, it's Uraraka. And All Might introduces Deku to Uraraka, and he tells Deku that this is going to be his successor that he chose. And Deku doesn't need one for all. By the way, no, just saying that right now. If he had one for all mixed in with this quirk, he'd be way too overpowered. So I'm not even gonna go with that. I'm just gonna give it to Uraraka because she best girl. Anyway, back to the story. So Deku and Uraraka start cleaning up Dagobah Beach, and I'm gonna say that it takes them about let's see, it's 10-month training period. I'll say that they were able to get it done in 7 months instead, and by then Deku is ripped. Like I'm talking like this man got freaking bulk on bulk. Along with Uraraka, because All Might told her that she's not allowed to use her quirk when actually moving the stuff. Like she has to use her actual, her strength. So he prohibited her from using her quirk. And Uraraka, I'm gonna say this right now. She got some muscle on her now. She got some toned arms, some really strong legs, and like a pretty decent core on her. She be working out pretty good. So from then on, All Might deemed Uraraka worthy, and Deku was there when it happened. So like when All Might plucked out the hair and gave it to Uraraka and said, "Eat this," Deku's first response was to laugh at just the utter comical relief of All Might just telling a girl that to eat his hair, and she was like, "What?" So Deku just kind of like, after he's done laughing, like at this funny response, and the fact that to pass the quirk she would have to eat his hair, Deku and Uraraka, they spend about the next 2 months kind of like working on their quirks a bit, and Deku is able to kind of like unlock a bit more of like his quirk, to where now the physical enhancements of his quirk, instead of doubling his strength, it actually triples his strength. He's able to manipulate most emotions, not like in like a enslavement kind of way, but like almost like Shinso, where if the person has any kind of negative emotion, he's able to take control of them for a short period of time. And now when he uses his aura, it's literally like the scene with Stain, where he like lets out his bloodlust and it just starts suffocating everyone, almost from the pressure of how it works. And Deku is now able to kind of manifest his quirk, almost like how he did when he was little with the fists into almost like weapons, kind of like where he's able to to extend out his his corruption into like a physical form, almost like whips, or enhance the like the fifth thing that I was talking about into almost like gauntlets, like corruption gauntlets, or into almost like a manifesting it into a sword or a knife, possibly. But he can actually determine whether the knife or sword manifestation is sharp or incredibly dull, which he does let All Might know, because obviously we don't want anyone getting, cut to death. And then he also unlocks the ability to kind of like corrupt the landscape and like make it like bend to his will, almost like a earth manipulation kind of thing, where anything within like the area of effect is under his control. Like he's able to like create make the earth kind of turn into his like plaything, almost like overhaul. And if he wants to, he can actually like corrupt people's shadows and create like puppets out of them. And his madness ability, like I said, it doesn't create like insanity to where they're just like a blubbering mess, but it can make it to where like he's able to make them see things that aren't there, almost like seeing a mirage, right? But he has to come in physical contact with them, or like his manifestations have to touch the person in order to create the madness. It's almost like a virus or an infection, but it only lasts a certain amount of time, and it's slow acting to where if he touches them, for it to be like an extreme type of like madness, he has to like hold on to them for at least a good minute or two. And the weapons, when like while it does help to make the madness kind of like grow like little by little, it's not as effective as it is for like grabbing the person. And it's at this point that, Uraraka and Deku, they've gotten to know each other. They gotten close. So Deku's not as shy around her as in canon. And in Deku's powers, he's, like I said, he gained like a lot of mastery over it, but he still does have room to grow in his powers, like, and all that. And like, since Uraraka has had at least about, let's see, I said that there were 7. That they've been training for that long. Like Uraraka, she's had time to kind of to learn how to use the quirk a bit, and obviously she did have the problem like Deku did, where he kept destroying his fingers and all that, and so she did still have that. But since Deku was around, he pointed that out to her and told her, why doesn't she just like spread the quirk like throughout all her body like equally, as to kind of like to reduce the stress on her, and like kind of put it to like a percentage, and this obviously, just like how it did in Deku, it amazed her that like she didn't think of it before like that. So at this point, she has the ability to use, I'll say, 4% of her power. And because of the fact that One for All actually has the ability to like enhance the quirks of the users, she's able to like, her quirk has evolved from like zero gravity to gravity manipulation, where like she doesn't need all 5 fingers to make someone float. Now, that doesn't mean that if she touches something, that it's just going to start floating. She has to want it to float. Like, have the intention for it to be floating, for her to use only one finger to make it float. But when something is, like, under her control with the quirk, she's able to increase the gravity on the object, or she's able to, like, make it go in like, whatever direction she wants. But and she will still get sick, but her threshold that she had in canon has doubled what it is, so she can hold, like, the gravity of stuff for longer, but it doesn't completely eliminate the fact that if she does go over her limit, it will make her sick still. Now, with that in mind, they did spend the last month before the exam, the entrance exam, like, studying. They gotta get smart. They gotta be studying a bit, and, like, so they would kind of, like, meet up and start studying together to cover all the bases, make sure that both of them were prepared before they went to take the exam. And the day of the exam, Deku, like, he met up with Uraraka, and they both walked to the UA campus together, just chatting away. And when they got there, Deku saw Bakugo, and technically, Deku is kind of still wary of Bakugo, kind of like in the anime, kind of not knowing what will set him off, but he's not, like, deathly afraid of him. And obviously, Bakugo's doing his average, "Don't hold your breath, Deku. I'm gonna win. So don't get in my way." It's, shtick. So he goes in the building, and Uraraka, she knows about Akachan. So, because Deku has told her about him, and she sees that, like, that blonde-haired Pomeranian has obviously kind of, like, upset Deku in a way, because Deku, he really does want to be, like, Bakugo's friend, but Bakugo, with his stinking god complex, obviously doesn't know how to tone it down. So she looks at Deku, and she throws her arm around him and says, "Hey, Deku, it's gonna be okay. I know you will do it. You're really strong, and you're so passionate about being a hero. I know you can do it. So don't let him get you down. Let's do our best, okay? Because at least if we did our best, then we can both say that we gave it our all. And if it doesn't work out, well, then, I don't know, we'll find a way." This does cheer Deku up a bit. So they go inside, and Deku does not proceed to trip on his own foot. And Deku and Uraraka, they go sit down, while technically, since they're from different schools, Deku sits next to Bakugo, while Uraraka goes and sits quite a ways away. And as President Mike gets on with the explanation of, like, wait. I think they do the test first. Wait, okay, Redcon. So they do the test, the written exam, and Deku gets, because of his studying with Uraraka, he gets a very good score. And then they proceed to the auditorium, where President Mike proceeds to start explaining, the 1-pointer, the 2-pointer, and the 3-pointer. And just before he gets down to explaining the 0-pointer, freaking Ida stands up and starts to run his mouth, saying, in the pamphlet, it says that there is a 4th robot. If this is a err on the school's behalf, then this is not very. How do you say it? He's like, this is not the way that a hero school should conduct itself. And you, he's taking points to Deku. He's like, you've been over there just muttering away. If you're not serious about being a hero, then get out. And Uraraka, seeing that Ida has insulted our little bean Midoriya, she gets up and she says, "Hey, leave him alone. He's thinking. He's trying to think about the best way to do this. And you're making just as much of a racket getting up and interrupting the teacher." And Ida, being called out and embarrassed, he sits back down. And President Mike proceeds to thank Uraraka for putting Ida in his place and interrupting them. And then goes on to explain that before Ida rudely interrupted him, that he was going to explain that is the 0 pointer. And it is, as it says, it is worth 0 points. It is a obstacle to be avoided and to like not be messed with, you know? So they all go out, and Bakugo is obviously in a different testing area than Deku and Uraraka. And Uraraka, like, she's by the gate, and like when Deku sees her, she's obviously, you know, a little bit nervous. She still does have the doubts in her head, and as he heads over to, you know, comfort her, Ida pops up saying, "I just saw you were gonna go bother that girl. Are you trying to ruin her chances?" And then Deku, you know, being the guy he is, he didn't get bullied as bad like as the original series, but he does kind of still have like a introverted nature to him, where he's very wary of people like getting up in his face and all that. Though when push comes to shove, he will not hesitate to throw some hands. But like he kind of like backs up a bit and tries to defend himself, saying, "No, I wasn't gonna try and ruin her chances. She looked nervous. I was gonna go and give her encouragement. She's my friend." And Ida, being the pain in the butt that he is, proceeds to tell Deku that he doesn't believe him, and that seems like a bold-faced lie, which doesn't make sense to Deku because she stood up for him and seemed like his friend whenever she stood up for him. But nevertheless, the horn blows, the gates open, and President Mike freaking comes over the speaker saying, "Well, what are you waiting for? There's no countdowns in a real battle. Go, go, go!" And Deku, hearing this, he immediately puts the physical enhancements into his legs. Like he puts all the energy into his legs, and he bolts. And just before the doors even all the way open, he jumps the gate, and like right in front of the gate is 3 robots. I'll say that it's 2 3-pointers and 1 1-pointer. And he proceeds to kind of like manifest the kind of gauntlets in his hand and does a spin and proceeds to punch the 1-pointer, and then with the enhancements still in his legs, like pushes off from the 1-pointer, spins and kicks both of the 3-pointers in the face, resulting in him getting 7 points off base. And all the other kids seeing this, they're like, "What is his quirk? He's so strong." And he starts running around, and like he can't worry about Uraraka, so he starts running around, starts to look for as many robots as he can, and he comes across about a few more like 1-pointers, and maybe about 3 2-pointers, and maybe like 6 3-pointers, but like in this alone, it would have given him enough points to like to at least make it to, let's see, what was it? I think maybe 1A, but like he didn't know exactly how much he needed to pass because be in mind that his quirk gives him 3 times the strength boost, and at this point he's probably like his base strength is like that of Cannon, maybe a little bit stronger, times 3. Now that's pretty dang strong. And the fact that he's had time to like practice with his physical enhancements, he's probably about up to the standard of like sports festival Deku. So he's kicking butt at this point. But he goes through, he starts beating up a bunch of robots left and right, and just like, he's thinking bulldozing them. And at one point he kind of gets surrounded by a few of them, and they're robots, so like most of his powers won't work, but he does use the ability to kind of like to corrupt the landscape, and like he kind of marks the destroyed robots that he's already gone through, and almost kind of like creates like a corrupted robot minions out of them that he's having run through, kind of go throughout the city, kind of destroying more robots. Now, the robots themselves that he kind of marked with his like corruption powers, they're not able to spread the corruption, but like they are kind of like helping to get him more points. And then like after he feels kind of like he got a good safe number, I'll say that like that he has about around, let's see, 230 points at this point. He kind of he deactivates the corruption markings on the robots, and he kind of like uses his corruption manifestations to create almost like claws as he like kind of scales a building to sit on top of it and watch the other competitors kind of like start destroying the robots. And it's not a big building, it's like a small building where he so he's not about maybe 3 floors up from the ground. And that's when like the teachers in the observation room, they see this kid and they're like, what is going on here? This kid's crazy powerful. And they freaking turn to Nezu, and Nezu's just like laughing like a maniac because he just sees the potential, and with his great intelligence, he knows that this kid is bound to just be something pretty stinking exciting in the future. And the teacher's like they're fighting over Deku. They're like, I want him in my class. No, I want him in mine. And Aizawa, being the nonchalant, calm person he is, he actually can he's not fighting over over Deku like a bunch of animals trying to get to the last piece of meat. He calmly walks over to Nezu, and he asks him, "What's the kid's quirk?" Because he's interested. And Nezu proceeds to tell him that he has a corruption quirk. And Aizawa, being baffled by the fact that someone with such an evil quirk would want to join UA, it kind of puzzles him a bit. But Principal Nezu, knowing the reason why, he says, "Oh, I was always planning to put him in your class. I just wanted to see the chaos in here of these people trying to freaking fight over who gets to be what teacher to him." And Aizawa, knowing that this is going to be a headache, proceeds to sigh, even though he was kind of hoping this would happen. But then Nezu, kind of being the evil genius that he is, thinks that he wants to test out what this kid can really do. And he just smashes this big red button on the table, releasing the 0 pointer. Now, from Deku's perspective, he's just sitting on the building, you know? He's doing just like relaxing, watching all the other competitors like destroy a few robots, and then he starts feeling the ground around him shake violently. And out of nowhere, the 0 pointer just like starts bulldozing some buildings, and like seeing this, he's like he's taken aback and kind of like afraid. He wants to run away, but like so he jumps down, and like just as he's about to kind of like run towards the entrance, he hears a girl call out for help, and he turns around. He sees that Uraraka, her legs are kind of crushed under the rubble, and seeing this, his hero spirit kind of kicks in, and he starts to run in Uraraka's kind of in her direction, and the feeling of despair that he has at the moment, because he sees that she's about to get crushed by the robot. And mind you, I know that she has One for All, but mind you, like even if she was able to float the rubble off of her, the girl's legs are completely crushed, so she wouldn't be able to walk in general. It would hurt to even get that stuff off her. So he starts running towards her, trying to, and at some incredible speed. And the negative energy inside of him, he feels it, right? And he adds it to like himself to kind of make his attack stronger. But then, like, he distributes it throughout his whole body, not realizing that like he corrupted himself in the process, which then led to like him actually like increasing his capacity for like the physical enhancement to a greater level. Whereas when he jumped, it created a small crater in the ground, and just like in canon, he almost like a blur jumped up really high in the air and like created a giant kind of like manifestation of a fist, and just like when he punched the robot, it exploded into a bunch of pieces. And like as he was heading towards the ground, like the aura of his corruption covering his body created a great mental strain on him, causing it to kind of fade before he can get to the ground. Whereas like just like in canon, his body was too worn out for him to actually move, and Uraraka last second, because like of him jumping and creating that small crater, it blew all that stuff off of him, and like she was able to like take control of the gravity around her and like launch herself in the air a bit, to where she was able to grab onto Deku, eliminating his like him falling, and like gently get them to the ground. And like his whole body is just like messed up, because it put too much of a strain on him when he manifested all of his power into his arms and legs. So just like in canon, it kind of broke, and it didn't really broke, but it tore a bunch of the muscles in his body. And when Recovery Girl came over, she saw him, and she just thought that like she felt like really bad that like a future student had to be hurt that badly in saving others, right? And she used her quirk on him, and it healed him. But like because of the drawback from Recovery Girl's quirk, it kind of like knocked him out. And like when Deku woke up, he was in Recovery Girl's office, and like Uraraka was like there, like leaning or not leaning, laying on like halfway on like the bed while sitting on a chair, and like he sits up, he sees her, and he kind of like gets a little bit flustered and all that, but like he realizes that he's in Recovery Girl's office, and he like thought back and remembered how his powers kind of like put like too much of a strain on him, which then caused him to kind of like pull the muscles in his body, hurting him a bit. And he looked back over to Araka, and he had a warm sensation in his heart, like a joy. He felt happy that she stayed around to make sure that he was okay. And he proceeded to shake her a bit and wake her up. And when she woke up, she kind of like lunged towards him and hugged him, kind of like a crying because she was really worried that like that him saving her with that weird power that just randomly manifested like that had actually like hurt him in like a severe way. And he hugs her and he pats her back and tells her that he's fine and that she doesn't have to worry about him. And she kind of like she steps back and like wipes the tears, and Recovery Girl comes into the office and says, "Oh, you're awake, young man. You know, you did give this girl quite the scare when we had to bring you to my office. Your body was so broken up from you overusing your quirk." And he proceeds to apologize to Recovery Girl for the inconvenience, and she says, "It was no inconvenience, young man. Don't even worry about it." And she discharges him, and he starts to walk home with Uraraka, and they start to talk about like how they think how the exam went. And Deku, with all the confidence, says that he thought that he at least did enough to where he'd be able to get into 1A. Uraraka, not being as kind of like confident in herself, felt that she did enough to where like she could confidently say that there was a very good chance of her getting in. And Deku re-encourages her and tells her that he believes that with like with her zero gravity quirk and like being All Might's successor, that there's no way she didn't get in because she's such a strong person, and that he admires her. This making her blush. She kind of like turns away, embarrassed at what he just said, and him not realizing what he said, like almost like the way he said it. I don't know how to explain it. Like the way he said it, it kind of like it shot past his head. He didn't understand that, like what he said could be construed as like romantic, you know. So he didn't realize that, and he just kind of continued walking her home and like encouraging her, telling her that he knows for a fact that if he got in, that she had to get in, right? So he walks her home and he drops her off, and it's about a week until they get their acceptance letters. And in this time, they're both like meeting up at Dagobah Beach, and they're working on their quirks, trying to like enhance them. But eventually they get their letters in, and Uraraka calls Deku and tells him that she wants to open their UA letters together. And so he goes over to her house, and they both open the letters excitedly, and to their surprise, it wasn't actually a letter, but like a little metal cylinder that created a hologram of All Might. And he explains to both of them that Deku, he got about 263 hero points, and I'll say that Uraraka got 125. but but Deku actually getting the score he did, he actually beat All Might's record by just a little bit. But then he starts to explain that that with the another part of the exam was the rescue points, which Deku actually gets. Let's see, about I'll say 60, 65, and with Uraraka saving Deku, it gives her 49. Right? So they're both like really excited and really happy that they got in. That they start hugging and jumping and freaking out, and they're obviously really happy for the fact that they got in, and so they celebrate a bit, and like 1 week later they arrive at UA to to go to orientation or whatever. No, orientation. I forgot how that goes. They get to the UA building, and like Deku and Uraka, they're just in awe of like how big the building is, right? And they go in and they start looking for their classroom, right? And when they get there, they see the giant door. And like Uraraka, like her eyes are wide open. She's like, "That's a giant door. What are they keeping in here? Freaking like giant ogres?" And this comment made Deku laugh because of the fact that obviously UA, they are obviously gonna freaking try and accommodate any kind of quirk, which Deku thinks is a very smart idea, and he kind of like commends them for this. But as they open the door, Ida and Bakugo are arguing, with Ida just kind of yelling at Bakugo for having his feet up on the desk, saying, "Our upperclassmen sat here. Do you not have any respect for UA?" And Bakugo, being the person he is, says, "Dang, what did your old school take a stick and no, how does this thing go?" He goes, "Did your old school put a stick up your butt?" And Ida, being appalled at such a comment, recoils and says, "How dare you say this to me?" And then Bakugo sees Deku and smiles a bit, thinking that to himself that his rival actually got in. And being that like Aizawa is like always like tired and grumpy, when Deku walked in, and like he could immediately just sense the overwhelming aura of like tired coming off of Aizawa. Like he could just tell Aizawa was tired. He was grumpy. He freaking obviously was like done with most of the class for how loud they were. And like Deku just thought seeing all the chaos ensuing in the class, he just kind of felt bad for the teacher. And he turns over to where he where he senses Aizawa, and he sees like a yellow freaking sleeping bag looking caterpillar thing, and he says, "Good morning, teacher." This reaction surprises Aizawa, because he didn't expect for one of his students to realize that he's there. And then Uraka, looking where she saw Deku looking, she sees this thinking sleeping bag, and she's like, "What in the world is that? Is that like a yellow caterpillar?" And then Aizawa stands up and slips out of his sleeping bag, saying, "I'm Shota Aizawa. I'm gonna be your homeroom teacher. Here, put these on. Meet me outside." He throws the sports the gym uniforms at the students, and he tells them to meet him outside. And just like in canon, freaking when they all get to the changing room, Kirishima sees that Deku is like bulky, like the like he's ripped, and he's like, bro, what kind of like routine do you do? And like, do you what? He asks him, do you like lift a lot or something like that? And Deku, hearing this and being the shy boy he is, he's like, oh, I don't think that I'm that muscular. I don't really, do much. And, he gets all shy and bashful. But the fact that, like, someone's actually noticing the fact that he's, like, really strong. And in canon, freaking Mineta finds the hole that, like, allows them to, like, peep into the girl's room. And Deku, he has feelings for Uraraka, and knowing that, like, that this little pervert is about to, like, peep in there and see her, he immediately just manifests a claw fist and just punches the grape-headed loser across the room and into the wall, creating an indention. He says, I'm not about to let a pervert peep on the girl's room. I will not let that happen on my watch. And just gives freaking Mineta a death stare. Because, like, he has feelings about Uraraka, but he's, like, very, very shy about it, and he, like, doesn't want to admit it to anyone, kind of. To where, like, they're not, like, crazy kind of feelings, like where he'd, like, be, like, just, like, blushing like crazy anytime he's around her, but, like, it's almost like he's starting to, like, develop a little bit of feelings for her. So, obviously, he's very protective over her in that sense, and, after they all change, and Deku keeps an eye on Mineta, making sure he does not peep, he yells out to the other side that they need to find something to block the hole up, and Uraraka, hearing this, she yells out, "Thank you, Deku!" Because obviously, at this point, like, she knows about the nickname that Bakugo gave him, and she already did the speech about, like, thinking that it means, like, you can do it. So, like, it obviously means something new, like, to him already, but, like, they immediately find something to, like, cover up the hole until they can report it to the teachers. But they all go out into the training field, and Aizawa takes the ball and he throws it at Deku, right? And he's like, "You were the one that got the highest score on the practical exam. Get in the circle and throw it as far as you can. You are permitted to use your quirk." And Deku, hearing this, he gets in the circle, and he manifests, like, as much, like, corrupted energy into his arm as he could, and he just hurls the ball as hard as he could up into the air, and this proceeds to cause the ball to like start soaring, where it freaking broke the sound barrier twice, and it reached orbit, and he got infinity. And Uraraka, she freaking starts pouting. She's like, "Hey, that was my trick." And he laughs and says, "I'm sorry." And then, like, he goes through the other physical exams, like, using his, like, corruption kind of, like, enhancements to kind of, like, to enhance his physical, like, traits, to where he beat Ida at the race. He was able to do the side-by-side jumping a lot faster than Mineta was. He was able to, like, to do the long jump and, all the other ones. I don't remember what all of them were, but he was able to do, like, all of it to where, like, to where he got first place. And because of Uraraka actually having one for all, she was able to get second place while Momo got third. This then led to like to Aizawa having been notified about Mineta's kind of like perverse actions in the locker room by Deku. um, Aizawa sent Mineta to the office and told him that he was expelled. And Mineta, being the little punk he was, he started crying all the way over there. And the other students, they were surprised at the fact that like Aizawa would just suddenly expel a student. But he then turns to them and says, "If you're not going to be serious about being heroes and are only going to do it for the wrong reasons, then you don't deserve to be a hero." Them all understanding where he's coming from and all this, they nod in agreement, and they head back into the school to continue with the rest of their courses. And then, like about a week later, no, I shouldn't travel that far. The next day, they when they came in, they had a student who replaced Mineta from General Studies, named Shinso. Yeah, put Shinso in there. And he replaces Mineta. Okay, I think Shinso really does deserve to be in 1A with how freaking amazing he is. Anyway, not the point. So the next day, Aizawa tells the class that he's not going to be their hero teacher for the day, and they start going like freaking out. They're like, "Wait, why?" And then he proceeds to tell them, "Well, your teacher for today will be here right about now." And at that moment, All Might comes to the door saying, "I am here," entering like a normal person would. And all of them start freaking out, going, "All Might is here! I didn't think that he'd be teaching us at UA and all that." And All Might just starts to laugh and says, "Well, and today we're gonna be doing a heroes versus villains training, and the clothes make the pros." So, and then he hits a button, which then releases all of these suitcases, and just sends them at the students, and he says, "Get suited up and meet me on training field B, I think it was." So they all get suited up, and they go out to the field, and All Might says, "Well, I'm going to be pulling lots to determine who is going to be on what team and what team each student will be." So just like in canon, everyone is on the same teams, minus Mineta like being swapped out with Shinso. But then All Might says, "Okay, now to determine who will be the heroes and who will be the villains." He reaches in to the boxes and he pulls out Team A versus, I think it was like Team F, which is like Bakugo and Ida. And Bakugo turns and looks at Deku and he threatens saying, "I'm gonna beat you, you damn nerd," and like popping the explosions in his hands. And then All Might proceeds to explain that the villains get 5 minutes to hide the bomb, and then the hero team will go in, and they'll have 15 minutes to either like defeat both villains or touch the bomb to deactivate it. So, the villain, Bakugo and Ida, they go and they get the bomb, and they take it up to the top floor, and then All Might proceeds to tell the heroes, "Okay, the 5 minutes are up. Come on, young heroes, time for you to go in and get the bomb." So when they get in there, like Deku tells Uraraka that obviously Bakugo is going to be going after him, so she needs to kind of to hide and get around him and try and go after Ida. her obviously understanding like the situation, she agrees, and like Deku kind of like feeling the negative intention. He can tell where Bakugo is in the building at this point. So he feels like Bakugo's like negative energy, like his rage coming down the building. And he kind of like tells Uraraka to duck into a room, and he lures like Bakugo out a bit. And when he passes the doorway that she's hiding by, she kind of like sneaks. She sneaks out the door and starts running towards where Bakugo had come from. All the while, like Bakugo is chasing after Deku, yelling, "Stop running, Deku! I'm trying to blow you up." And Deku responds in a funny way, "That's exactly why I'm running. I don't feel like getting exploded today." Which then proceeded to make All Might laugh, because that was the funniest retort he heard. And like then Deku suddenly paused, which as Bakugo is closing in on him, and he manifested his like corrupted fist and punched Bakugo right in the stomach. And the momentum of Bakugo exploding the air behind him and charging towards Deku, mixed with Deku suddenly stopping and then like spinning and punching Bakugo in the stomach, it knocked the wind out of Bakugo and sent him flying back a bit. And like he coughs and in rage, he says, "You damn Deku! You think that you'll beat me like that?" And he charges back at Deku. And Deku proceeds to tell him, You forget, Bakugo. I've been studying you for years. I know all of your moves. I know for certain that your favorite is to start with your famous right hook." He grabs Bakugo by the hand and flips him over his shoulder, slamming him right into the ground, and then and then kicking him with the manifestation into his foot, knocking Bakugo into a wall. Then Bakugo, in a really pissed off rage, he gets up and he looks at Deku and he says, "Well, if you think you're so smart, then I'm pretty sure you've noticed that these gauntlets on my arms aren't just for show." And he pulls back the lever and he grabs onto the pin, and All Might hasn't caught on to the fact of what Bakugo is about to do. And then, like, just before Bakugo is about to pull the pin, All Might yells, "Young Bakugo, stop! You'll kill him!" And then Bakugo, as in canon, responds, "Not if he dodges!" And then yanks the pin as hard as he could, sending a giant explosion towards Deku, destroying the entire floor with him. In Uraraka, she can feel this from about 3 floors up. But what Bakugo was not expecting was that Deku actually used his like corruption abilities to create like a shield around him to take the blow. Though because of the fact that it is corruption, which is a type of dark energy, it wasn't able to hold as well as Bakugo. Explosion was extremely powerful, and it did kind of give way at the end. So Deku did not come out of it unscathed, but it did definitely cause enough damage to where it burned Deku just a bit. So Deku, then wanting to try and get this over with, he started to charge, and Bakugo used his explosions to maneuver behind Deku, just like he did in the anime, and explode his back. So he was going a bit more like unpredictable, and Deku was not able to adjust well enough to actually like figure out exactly what Bakugo was planning to do. But then right as he got up, he kind of like manifested a whip out with his with his corruption and wrapped it around Bakugo, slamming him into the wall, and then yanking again, knocking him into the floor. And the whip is firmly grasped around Bakugo's waist. So it's creating the madness effect where it's slowly starting to seep away at his sanity and like create the illusions minorly. So Deku creates an illusion inside of Bakugo's head where he's not able to kind of like see Deku properly, almost like he's seeing Deku become kind of like disconfigured and like really messed up looking. This freaks Bakugo out, almost kind of like making him like scared for a second. So with Bakugo being in this disoriented state, seeing like Deku kind of like look almost monstrous, Deku takes the opportunity to charge at him and like swiftly punch him in the gut, which like one final time, which he actually puts a little bit more power into this one. And Bakugo's like had so much physical damage done to him now that it knocks him out. And he radios up to Uraraka saying, "Hey, have you found the bomb yet?" And Uraraka, she uses her communicator down to Deku and tells him that she found it on the top floor, and that she thinks that she'll need his help. So he runs up there as fast as he could. And when he got there, he found like Uraraka was trying to get the bomb away from Ida, but like he kept like out like racing her. So when Deku got there, obviously Ida was on his like fake villain shtick where he's like, "Ah, I see the other hero has come. You will succumb to my villainy." Deku's saying this, he just thought it was so stupid and laughed. Just purely laughed. And then, like, wanting Uraraka to at least have a little bit of the glory from this, he put his hand on the ground and corrupted it a bit to where the area became unstable-ish. And Uraraka, seeing what Deku was doing, she used her powers on herself and sent herself floating towards the bomb, and Ida like being so disoriented and from like the shaking, he couldn't react fast enough to get the bomb away from her. So Uraraka was able to actually jump out and get the bomb like from Ida, and that was it. They won. And when they returned, Bakugo had to be like wheeled off by Recovery Girl's like assistant robots to her office. That way that she could start like working on him. And All Might like asked the students what they thought was like they did right and wrong, and obviously like Momo, she put her 2 bits in, but like they all agreed that they couldn't pick between Uraraka and Midoriya being the MVPs because they both contributed like in like such major ways. Not to mention that their teamwork skills actually seem to like be in sync, so they didn't really have a lot of problems with it, other than like being kind of freaked out by what Deku's powers actually did. And even then, they thought that it was just like some really cool, flashy quirk that allowed him to kind of create weapons with his hands and somehow change the landscape around him. Though they obviously didn't know exactly what his quirk was, they just thought it was really cool. So all the other battles, they went the same, apart from Shinso's, because obviously it's Shinso. All he has to do is like get them to talk and he'll win that one. So that obviously went a lot better than in canon. But even then, they finished up with the heroes versus villains, and after that, they went home. And I think it's about right there that I'll end this part. Yeah, I feel that's a good part. Spot to end off. I'll be making part 2 very soon, so stay tuned for that one. And until then, the shadows are watching.